Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, brothers and sisters. Thank you so very much for joining us. First and foremost, I would like to extend my most deepest congratulations on this auspicious and celebratory occasion, the birth anniversary of the daughter of Fatima and Ali, the flag bearer of Karbala and the messenger of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha. There are so many things that we can talk about. The dynamic, multifaceted, extremely intrinsic and complex character of Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha. And there is no amount of webinars or YouTube clips that can suffice for this topic. But in this short period of time that we have, we're going to try to touch upon a few subjects regarding her eminence, and inshallah ta'ala try to bring ourselves and our conduct closer to her. So the first thing that we need to talk about is that oftentimes when it comes to Sayyidah Zainab, our main focus is her contributions and her struggle and her jihad and her endeavors during the period of Karbala and afterwards. And rightfully so, that was basically the climax of her life and perhaps even the climax of human history. What we need to understand is that it's not something that happened overnight. Lady Zainab did not wake up one morning and decide to be this incredible, brave, intelligent, refined human being that shoulders all the responsibilities of the aftermath of Karbala and becomes a beacon of hope for the grief-stricken victims of Ashura and all of humanity, for that fact. It was a work in progress. It was something that happened throughout her entire life, and then it boiled down to Karbala, which was the climax. This is something that we really need to understand, that Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha spent her entire life in jihad. She spent her entire life in refining herself and gaining knowledge of Allah, of humanity, of society, of politics, gaining insight and wisdom, of course, from her father, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam, from her brothers. She spent her lifetime reflecting and pondering about the purpose of creation and her position in this universe. This is something we truly need to grasp, because at the end of the day, catastrophe is bound to happen. We will all face great challenges and struggles in our lives that will demand us to be the best versions of ourselves, that will require us to be a relying point for those who are around us, our family members, our society, our friend. And if we don't prepare ourselves for that inevitable moment that's going to happen, because it's the purpose of life, then we're going to be broken beyond repair. And this is something that I personally feel Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha taught us through her movement, through her actions, through her conduct. The tragedy of Karbala is not something that we can wrap our heads around. It's also not something that I want to talk about much, because it's a celebratory occasion and it's a joyous one. But Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha trained herself for that day throughout her entire life. And it should get us wondering and reflecting, how much do we train ourselves for the trials and the tests and the challenges that are bound to come our way? That's one thing that I wanted to talk about in this short period of time that we have. And inshallah ta'ala, if there are other opportunities, perhaps we can break it down and analyze it furthermore. The second thing that I feel is of the utmost importance for us to discuss regarding the character of Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha and what she represents is the astonishing importance and empowerment Islam has in regard with women. We should not underestimate that. The fact that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam set out for the biggest movement of human history and decided to take his sister and his wife and his daughters and his female family members with him shows that in the Islamic way of thought and in the Islamic teaching, women can also contribute to fighting, defending, and preserving the higher purpose as long as they stick to their values and principles. This is so important for us to understand, especially nowadays with this whole rage in social media and people sporting the title influencer. Sayyidah Zainab was the biggest influencer of human history. She's the role model, she's the benchmark, she's the criterion, she's the standard. Nowadays, people are introducing themselves to the youth, to the communities and societies as influencers, and they don't really understand which part of the human psyche they're influencing and which direction they're guiding our youth toward. When we look at the history of Karbala and the movement of Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha, we can gain a proper standard for that. This is what happened. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam had a mission, right? As the leader of the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as the Imam stated, that he is going on this journey to reform the society, to do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, and all the other list of purposes and objectives that he had from his movement. And he knew that it would lead to war, even though his objective wasn't to go and fight and bring about bloodshed for or on anyone. But he knew it was going to happen either way. He could have just said that, okay, Zainab, my darling sister, my wife, my daughter, my cousin, you guys stay home where it's safe and convenient and you're protected. And I'm sure that no one is going to harass you or assault you or hurt you. And me and the rest of the men of the family and the society and those who want to follow me will go and make history. Imam al-Hussein could have said that, but he didn't, because he knew that Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha as a woman could play a role in the grand picture of Karbala that no one else could. And Imam al-Hussein allowed that because Sayyidah Zainab was a woman who stuck to her principles and values. We need to emphasize on that a lot, because nowadays, especially with the multitude waves of feminism and all the talk about empowering women and liberating women, emancipating women, women's rights, and all these sorts of slogans and rhetorics. Women, they want to give women what they're supposed to have, but the means through which they deliver that is absolutely corrupted and wrong. Women have rights, women have positions in society, women can contribute and should, but the way the modern world wants to present these opportunities to us is so far from the purpose and the objective Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had for our creation. And the more we familiarize ourselves with the characteristics of Sayyidah Zainab, with her worldview, with her value system, with all the process and the progress and the trainings she went through to get herself to where she was during and after Karbala, the better we can refine and train ourselves. And that is our duty, not just as women, not just as Muslims, but as human beings. There's so much to talk about on this topic. there's so many dimensions regarding what Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah Alaiha represented that we can explore and discover. But another thing that I feel is important for us to look at in regard with Sayyidah Zainab and what she went through during the final years of her life, because she didn't survive very long after her brother, after all, is her ability to cope with trauma. And I feel that by understanding that, we as women, not just as women, we as her followers and as human beings can equip ourselves with the necessary tools to deal with the hardships and difficulties of life. Once again, the tragedy of Karbala is something that an infallible Imam says regarding to it, La yawm qiyamika ya Aba Abdullah, there is no day, no catastrophe, no tragedy, no calamity like yours, O Hussein. We understand that. Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah Alaiha faced every moment of it directly and indirectly. Not only that, but she had the responsibility of attending to the wounded, to the sick, to the orphan, to the widowed, to the grief-stricken after Karbala. How was she capable of doing it with such grace, such poise, such bravery, such confidence, almost effortlessly, in a way that in his farewell with his sister, Imam al-Hussein told her, pray for me in your Salat al-Layl. What character is this? What strength? What power? What resilience? What resistance is this? Do we really understand it? When we say we love Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah Alaiha, it's these exceptional, unparalleled qualities of hers that mesmerizes us and everyone that looks upon history. We are taught to refer ourselves to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and his sorrows whenever we face challenges in life. It's not because we are trying to undermine our own trauma, or we are trying to compare ourselves with Imam al-Hussein, because it's obviously impossible. He was an infallible Imam, and he was of a celestial essence so different than ours. But one of the reasons that we're taught to do that is so that we can put things in perspective. Secondly, is so that we can have a standard that we can try to or strive to reach in our lives when faced with calamities. We can learn that coping mechanism that the al-Bayt and Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah Alaiha developed in the face of the struggles and challenges of life. If it were a normal human being that did not go through the process of self-refinement and jihad and striving and struggling in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and gaining the necessary knowledge and philosophy and wisdom regarding life, creation, and its purpose, if it was just a random human being that was worried about what to eat today, what to post on Instagram today, which celebrity did what today, what to wear, where to go. If it were a person who is obsessed with these trivial, superficial things and did not ever spare time to reflect and contemplate about the more important aspects of life, they would not have been able to achieve the things that Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah Alaiha. I'm not saying that we will ever be tested with the things that she was, but worst case scenario is bound to happen at some point in life. Not because Allah is some sort of bully that's sitting around and waiting to challenge us and push us off the cliff so that He can prove to us our innate weakness, but rather so that our Creator can prove to ourselves the potential and the strength that we hold within. by studying the philosophy and wisdom of Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha, and by trying to follow in her footsteps, we can, like we said, develop the necessary ability and equip ourselves with the tools to cope with the challenges and even the simpler inconveniences of life. If we don't have the sort of viewpoint that considers a bigger picture and a grand scheme designed and crafted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the purpose of reaching a lofty and sacred objective, if we don't have that sort of mindset and think that everything happens randomly, that there is no purpose and meaning to the actions and the events that come about in life, that our existence in this world is random and we do not have a divine purpose that we're gravitating toward, everything is going to throw us off. Every little inconvenience, every little difficulty, every little plan that goes wrong. But Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha, I promise myself that I won't revisit those tragic scenes, but it's interwoven with the philosophy of Zainab Salamullah alayha. During those final moments, when the dust of war had settled and the swords and spears and arrows were laying about with the severed and mutilated bodies of her loved ones, when she stepped into the pit and she saw her most beloved, most precious, most cherished brother, imam and leader in that state, she could have thrown her hands up and said, "That's it, I'm done." She could have said, "This is too much. This is where I draw the line. I can't bear this anymore. This is beyond my capacity, my capability. Allah is testing me more than I have." She could have said any of those things and history would have taken an entirely different course. She could have reacted like we would have. Instead, she displayed a degree of utter submission. Instead, she displayed a degree of utter submission, satisfaction, and love. She said, "Oh Allah, accept this sacrifice from us." Not only did she not view herself as entitled and absolutely shook at the face of this unimaginable trauma, not only did she not ask, "Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this?" but she saw herself as a little entity that owed Allah, owed her imam, hoping, pleading, begging that Allah would accept this sacrifice from her, the grandest, most galactically marvelous sacrifice of human history. How often do we have that sort of attitude in life? When we're trying to help other people, when we're trying to go out of our way to have something work out for someone who asked for our assistance, when we're trying to do the right thing, when we're in our minds, we're trying to do Allah a favor by submitting to His command and being patient in the face of the tests and trials that He sends our way. How often do we have that attitude that, am I doing the right thing? Am I good enough? God, will you accept this sacrifice from me? I'm not trying to say that we're not good enough. Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha and her actions show us that every little thing that you do for the cause of Allah is good enough. Every little step that you take for the love of the al-Bayt is good enough. But it's important for us to be more humble, perhaps, to have that mindset of reflecting in, of looking inward instead of expecting from the world, instead of thinking the world owes us something and we don't deserve the hardships that come our way. Sometimes it's a good thing that there is a sort of injustice in distribution of injustice, because then it means that we're not on the scale of the awfulness of the awful thing that happened to us. So, to wrap up everything that we've been discussing for the past 15 minutes, number one, Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha teaches us that in order to reach that climax point in our life where everything that we've done boils down to that moment, and it's a fight or flight moment where we get to prove our stock and what we're really made of, we need to spend our life in gaining knowledge, refining ourselves, and serving the cause of Allah, in gaining insight and wisdom and understanding our position in this realm. Secondly, Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha gives us the prototype for what it truly means to empower women. That it doesn't mean stripping away their honor, their chastity, their clothes, even the essential biological things such as their gender. Empowering women means allowing women to do the best that they can and be the best version of themselves while adhering to their values and their principles. And number three, Sayyidah Zainab Salamullah alayha teaches us how to cope with trauma and how to tap into that inner strength, that reserve that we all have within us when we're faced with the challenges and difficulties of life. Thank you so much for being with us once again. As'adallah ayyamakum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.